Viewer discretion is advised.
And oh yeah, I've crushed life. You know, I've made it mine, and then life goes, no, you haven't, because I'm going to show you what life's about.
Mandate.
Hey, welcome to Mandate, where we navigate fresh perspectives and nothing's off the table. Tonight's guest is originally from South Africa, but now he resides in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in Tamaki Makaurau. He is an entrepreneur, has vast experience with the property industry. He mentors in property, business, social media, and he has his own podcast called The Wolf of Queen Street. But also one thing that's really important about this guy is that he's an amazing story, amazing message, impactful messages. So please put your hands together for the ingenious Lawrence Lotze.
Thank you so much. It's always weird being on the other side. It's always weird. It is always so weird being, you know, I've given some big intros and I understand it when my guests go and they almost blush. You know, I never like to hear my own story, right? But thanks. It's amazing to have the opportunity to be on the show. You know, I reached out was a couple of months ago, so I found you on TikTok one night when I was doing my social media, man, and I was like, this looks the part. There is some amazing message you guys are trying to achieve and people you're trying to go out to. And I was like, I wonder if I could have the opportunity, the humbling opportunity to be able to come here and tell my story to your audience that I've seen over the last couple of weeks are amazing supporting and people that I think would love to hear what I have to say, but people are, you know, I want to share out there and try and help as well, pretty much.
Oh, awesome, Lawrence, because I know you got an amazing message, and obviously we'll kind of unpack that tonight. And so, bro, thank you so much for hitting us up, like I said before, and for and you run your own podcast. You're quite out there, and a lot of people know who you are as well, bro. And so you got have a wide network and a connection. But before we kind of get into it and dive into the conversation, Lawrence, can you tell us just a little bit, for those who don't know who you are, just tell us a little bit about who you are, because the accent, oh, hey, that's the famous South African accent. Yeah, just give them a bit of a teaser.
Oh, how about this? I'll give you a bit of a backstory up until about 2018, where my story really gets thick into it, right? So obviously I can't hide. I'm South African. Some days I try to hide it, right? And then people just look at me and go, nah, bro. So born and raised Cape Town, South Africa, Stormer supporter. Most of my year, I grew up being a rugby player myself, going top level, private schooling. We're just talking about off air, you know, having the opportunity of going to like Springbok 21 trials when I was back in South Africa, walking in to the trials, and I was playing in hooker at that stage, back up sort of in the front row, and running into a kid called Bismarck Lupasi as my competition at the Springbok 21 trials. And having the realization that I'm good, I'm just not that good, and been humbled one of the first few times in my life of actually seeing what skill, hard work, and what those guys did. I mean, I think he made Springbok 21s, and then from there into the senior team, I think it was 10 or 12 years without a break. So I at least could say a very exceptionally good player outplayed me. You know, but yeah, so. Grew up in the sports field, came over to New Zealand. That's what brought me over to New Zealand when I was 19. Played over college rifles in Remuera for a year there for their seniors, and went back and then finished my my degree, because at that stage when I came over to New Zealand, I'd met my wife. She's a Kiwi from West Auckland. We met at to anyone that knows the pub scene, the local Cock and Bull. Oh, yeah, the old LSE Cock and Bull. Yeah, let's see how many shout out to everyone at
Props to Cock and Bull.
Yeah, right. Who's had a few drinks there. Yeah, we met there, and then she sort of gave me that story of, hey, you know, if we ever want to take this further, you know, in South Africa, things unfortunately is not great. No matter, you know, there was a time period where it was looking better, you know, with Nelson Mandela in the 90s and early 2000s, but the time had changed. And she said to me, you know, if we wanted to take things further and we wanted to have a family, let's do it in New Zealand. New Zealand's the place to do it. If we don't want kids, by all means, you know, South Africa can still be opportunity. And I was always raised that I always wanted to be married young, have kids young and everything at that stage. So I was like, cool. Went back to South Africa, finished my degree, my business degree. I was raised in that sort of sense of you go to school, you go to high school, you go to university, you get a degree and you start a job. And it's one of those things I look back now going, what a waste. because most degrees just sit on a shelf and we don't follow any of it, right? So just as a side note, I've already told my kids, I will not force you to go to university. I'd rather you travel the world for 3 years, right? The experience of traveling the world for 3 years outweighs any $100,000 worth of debt and degree. So finally finished my degree there, moved back here into New Zealand, and got married and started a family young when I was early in my 20s, and just built up from there in my sort of my 9-to-5 job, pushing that into the success. And one thing that I'd been raised with from my parents was always pushing to the max, always been. My dad had this saying, I don't know if you guys remember you get the Ever Ready batteries, and there used to be an ad with the Ever Ready, the bunny on TV
yes,
like 20 years ago, and it would die and then it would stand up. And he used to tell me as a kid, he goes, you have to always be an Ever Ready battery. And you look at him as a kid going, what are you talking about? And he goes, you have to be ready if the opportunity that you want happens right now. So if you're working towards being successful in whatever you're doing, in the podcasting game, in social media, in business, in sport, and you want that working towards the opportunity, and something happens and the opportunity turns around and they go, here it is, you got to make sure that you're ready for it at that stage. So this is something that was ingrained to me very much in my teenage years into my 20s. So I kept pushing and always pushing. It's good in some sense, but not in all sense. And so I kept pushing to achieve everything I wanted to do pretty much in my 20s when I was in New Zealand. So young family, kids, career was building up really well, got our first family home, and it was like, cool, how do I take it next level? Okay, let's fund a second family or investment property. And sort of having target and just looking for the target and hitting it, and looking for the target and hitting it. And that's how I thought life should be, right? Just put things in front of you and knock it out of the way. And I think back to myself of how I would have been in the 20s, and I would have been that cocky, arrogant South African that most people, look at and go, we don't like him. We don't want to be around him because all you want to do is chasing the success and the money. And unfortunately, there's what was pushed in me and bred in me because that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I followed until I started my brand only just over 3 years ago, coming into 2018, as I said, is the point of, I've made it. I've done well. 2018 was sort of the year of success, traveling the world with my family and seeing everything we wanted to see and doing everything we wanted to do. The pat on the shoulder where you turn back and go, oh yeah, I've crushed life. I've made it mine. And then life goes, no, you haven't, because I'm going to show you what life's about. And that's really sort of in the end of 2018 into 2019 where really my life and my journey and why I'm here today and why my story and things actually started. Nothing of before that, nothing of the journey and the success and what I thought I achieved before it. All of that just fell away going into sort of 2019.
Wow. Mate. And it's funny that you mentioned the South Africans. And people think, and regardless of what people think in terms of, they're quite arrogant. But what I take a different view, because I have a lot of South African friends, but they're very similar in terms of they're very driven, they're very motivated, and there's something about that. I don't know what is it about the South Africans that they're quite they're driven, they're quite ambitious.
I think there's a lot of things people can't understand. Growing up in South Africa, seeing the worst of the worst, in that sense, compared to what people like, for example, in New Zealand might see, in Australia, is I say to people, it is that growth of having to survive. We live in a hard time in New Zealand at the moment, right? We've just come through COVID, 2020 economy. It sucks at the moment. Overall, to anyone, it sucks. But having to wake up and fight to survive and fight to live. Growing up, being used to my dad carrying a 9mm on his side, going to the local restaurant and my dad having a revolver and putting it under the seat when we sat down as kids and eating because that was the normality. Having friends stabbed and shot and mugged every other week, normality. So you almost have this, you've got to fight to survive. So you either let life take you and you just stay down there, or you fight the hardest you can to try and achieve some form of normality or success or the next level. So you get brought up in this, and in your teens and your 20s, and when you come to the rest of the world, you come to New Zealand. I remember the first year I came to New Zealand, everyone's like, slow down, just chill. Everyone's just like, just chill. And we're like, what are you doing? I came over here, I was, 19, 20, first time, going, everything just wanting to rage and go and sport and be successful and everything. Everyone's just like, just chill. And I was like, did I miss something? And it almost felt like there was like this 10-year gap between South Africa and New Zealand of, New Zealanders start 10 years later because they take an extra 10 years just to figure it out. And it's not that they take an extra 10 years to figure it out. They just enjoy life more and have more of life. And I know a lot of people might be looking going, hey, it sucks and it's hard, yeah. Trust me when I say I've seen shit and heard shit and experienced stuff you never want to experience. And that's why sometimes, from some South African point of view coming over, we have that because if I don't have that drive, I get left behind at the very bottom of the very worst that you can have in the world, or life just eats me up and I get taken, or something happens to my family or my life, or things like that. So that's why I feel that sometimes this comes across in South Africans that we're so driven. And it's not driven, it's just that we got to keep moving to try and improve ourselves or our lives or our opportunities. Otherwise, it's literally just going to suck you back in.
Wow, mate. And I appreciate that, Lawrence, because I think in the past, you kind of, for face value, you think, oh, well, the South Africans, they're very driven, ambitious. But now you can understand as to why. All the hardships and the worry and all that stuff that's happening back home. And you see the push, and I love the fact that you talked about the ever ready battery, that in terms of opportunities, and you guys strive, you continuously strive. But it must be quite weird when you come to a country where it's kind of real laid back, relaxed. You're saying, what's wrong with these people, man? Well, how is it for you now? Because you live here now, and you see that you see all the changes and all that. But what do you still have that urge to come? Obviously, it's still there. Like I want to keep going, do things.
Yeah, so it all depends. I mean, it all depends if you want me to go through my story of 2019, so tell the audience, because that's where it pivoted. It's still there, but it's changed. So up until 2018, it was 100 miles an hour. Be more, do more, buy more, be more successful, have more money. That's stuff that most people hate of other people, right? And look how cool I look like, and can I have the best car, and can I have the biggest house, and all that sort of stuff. And I look back at myself going, man, I would have hated myself. I would have not liked a lot of what I was, in my 20s into my 30s, and then, like I said, in 2019, when life threw me my curveball, that's when I had the humbling experience of that in that situation. That taught me that that's not all that life's about. That's not all that life's about for me. Don't get me wrong. For some people, it still is the point, right? But for me and my journey and my story and my family, that is no longer the chase. I don't chase more money. Don't get me wrong. Everyone loves money, right? But I don't chase an opportunity to make me more money or to get paid more money to have, or the success or the fancy cars. What I chase now is for trying to have it that other people have that opportunity, because I've had enough and I've experienced enough and I've enjoyed enough, but everyone should have that. One of the biggest things that I've learned is wealth, depending on how you perceive or understand wealth, right? Some people understand wealth as money, and some people understand wealth as a happy family and a large family. However you perceive wealth, there's enough of it in the world that we all can have it. And it takes a struggle for most people to understand that, because we are not willing to share our wealth or our knowledge, right? For a very long time, I was like, I'm not going to tell you how I was successful. I'm not going to tell you how I made my money or how I achieved it, because if I tell you, you're going to become better than me. And after, my medical situation from 2019, I realized that I'm Lawrence. There's no other person on the planet that is me. You can become a better version of you, but you'll never be me. And there's that whole thing of you're only ever competing with yourself. So if you can be happy with that and understand that, and willing to share, because no matter how much I share, no one's ever going to be Lawrence or be a better version of me, because I'm the only person I'm the only version. And that was one of the biggest learnings that came out of it. And that's when all of a sudden the knowledge and the sharing and the giving away as much as possible as I can, because other people should become the best version of themselves. And I have a message and a thing that I tell to most people, most of my students and people I help, or anyone in my network, is I want them in a couple of years' time to be twice, 3, 4 times more successful in the wealth that they want than what I am today. I'd rather look at it in 100 people that I've helped are over there and sitting with the All Blacks in the box and enjoying it, and I'm sitting back at home and going, I can't get there, but they can, because they have that opportunity and they deserve that.
Mate.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's awesome. What a mindset. Now I'm really curious about the inciting incident that caused this
change.
This transition, the switch, and especially the nuances of the struggle, because I think there'll be people that have their own struggles, but there might be nuggets from your struggle that are relevant to them, and not everyone is fortunate to be able to reflect on it and have the awareness to be able to pull those nuggets and those gems from it. So I'm really curious to hear about those years that I think you mentioned 2018, 2019.
Yeah, so as I said, I got to 2018 was the year sort of where the success, where my big success, travel in the world, or everything that I ever wanted in life, I'd achieved it, and I looked at it and went, great, I'm success, and there's nothing I can't do into 2018. And that's where at the end of 2018, I made the decision to start my social media brand called The Wolf of Queen Street. Obviously, it's a knockoff of The Wolf of Wall Street. My first logo was me in a white suit from Vegas with my hands up here, because I wanted to be Jordan Belfort, right? I wanted to be as cool and as famous and crazy stories like him. So I started The Wolf of Queen Street brand at sort of end of 2018 into 2019. And then when 2019 sort of started and everything like that, I started feeling a little bit off about myself. I was like, I'm just not 100% in the first couple of months. And I thought back and went, okay, maybe 2018, it's a bit of a hangover. Maybe I've had 2 of a big year. I'm actually having a bit of a hangover. I'm also getting a little bit older, mid-30s, maybe my body's saying, hey, slow down. And I still felt not all there. The social media brand was going. I was interviewing like the top business people in the world and all that. And all of that important stuff was still just going in 100 miles an hour on the one side. But on the other side, I was just like, nah, something's just, you can't shake it. To any of the female listeners or audience out there at the moment, women's intuition, they know what I'm talking about. When you feel that sort of something's not right, that's the sort of feeling I started getting. And the wife said to me, okay, maybe you need to go to your doctor. Maybe go to the GP and just have a little checkup and everything else. And put my hand up. Us males, we are horrible with asking a GP or be willing to go to a doctor and go, hey, mate, I'm not feeling 100%. Can you check me out? And please, as a first point to anyone out there at the moment, if you're not feeling it and everything else, I know at the moment it's really hard to get in front of a GP, so unfortunately it's a bit of a struggle, but go and ask someone, just have a checkup. So I went to my GP and said, hey, look here, I'm feeling a little bit off. I'm not sure what's going on. And I said, okay, right, we'll send you for blood tests and see what we find out. So you're talking about sort of February, March in 2019, send me sort of for the blood test, send me for a couple more, because there was a few things in the initial in the blood test that looked a bit weird. And then my GP called me and he said to me, hey, we've seen something in your blood that is not normal. Firstly, not normal for a male, and then not normal in total. And what they had found is a hormone called prolactin. And a prolactin is the hormone that a breastfeeding mother produces while she's breastfeeding. So the doctor's like, well, you're not transitioning, you're not taking hormones, you're not doing any of that stuff, and your level is 4 times the level of a breastfeeding mother. So we're like, that's not normal. So they said to me, okay, I want you to go see a specialist. Go see a specialist, and they'll do a checkup if everything's all right with your pituitary gland, which produces your hormones and everything else. So when we went and saw the specialist, sat down, and he said to me, there's this common is this common case that happens that you get a very, very actually quite small growth next to your pituitary gland. You can actually take a medication and it almost dissolves. So it's just like a small growth. Firstly, I thought it was weird that they said it's normal that there was something growing in my brain. But I was like, okay, cool. And he said to me, go and have an MRI scan. We'll just check out the head and then I'll see you a week later. And the Tuesday or the Wednesday morning, we're talking about April 2019 now, I go with my wife to go in on to do the MRI scan. And sorry, because this always gets me. And we walk in, we do the MRI scan. It's 8 a.m. I think it's the first slot they had in the morning. Literally 5 minutes after I walk out, the MRI, my specialist calls me and goes, Lawrence, I don't want to see you in a week's time. I want to see you at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And at that moment, my hair's, I got goosebumps and my hair's risen in the back of my neck. I can remember it as if it was yesterday. At that moment, I had a realization that something was going to change. My life would never be the same at that exact moment, because if he couldn't wait 7 days to see me, he had to see me in hours. What was going on? So the next morning, myself and my wife go into the specialist. We sit down and the guy, he says to us, we had the scan, my wife goes, just to try and break the tension. He goes, did you find Lawrence's brains? Does he have anyone? So we all giggled and, that nervous giggle, like, funny joke. And he turned around and said, we found something in the brain. And I've actually got the scan. I've got a photo of the scan, and I use it when I do public speeches. And what that found is on the base of my brain, around the pituitary gland, there was a growth, and the growth was about a golf ball size that encased my pituitary gland, was next to my optic nerve, and was pushing on my carotid artery. So anyone that knows horror movies will know what I'm talking about when I talk about the carotid artery. The growth was so big that at this stage, I had, unbeknownst to myself, it was pushing on my optic nerve, which runs your sight. I'd lost a third of my sight. My sight was actually closing in on me. My peripheral vision was being lost because it was just slowly growing and pushing this nerve. And it made sense when I found this out, because I'd been struggling as part of not feeling great. I'd been struggling with having really sore shoulders and neck the last few months. And my specialist told me that it was because I had to turn more to see more, because I had lost half of, a third of my sight at that stage. And this growth on the carotid artery, if it was allowed to grow, it would push onto the carotid artery, lose my sight, impacting my pituitary gland, which was controlling all my hormones. And this is why the hormones were out of whack. And the specialist said, hey, look here, this isn't something we can leave. This isn't something that you can just come, here's a tablet and, I'll see you in 6 months' time. We've got to get this sorted. So from having everything just a few months before, and having everything which I thought was success and all the pieces in the world, to sitting there a few months later and having a golf ball sized tumor on my brain that, if I was left alone, could cause critical issues and, unbeknownst, maybe even death within a year's time, life's changed quickly, and so fast, in the sense that 6 weeks later after that, I had the surgery with the best brain specialist in New Zealand, and that's why it was 6 weeks, because he was on leave. So we waited. I could have had a couple of weeks earlier, but they said to me the risk of waiting that 2 weeks was okay to get number one, and I wanted number one. And I went in on 25th of June 2019 on my birthday. I went in to have surgery. So on the day you normally celebrate of being born, I had to try and fight to celebrate to be alive. So every time I've had a birthday since, I celebrate me being alive, not being born. And I think it's a bit of a different mindset of, you need to celebrate another year that we're here, right? We don't always have it. So obviously, as I'm sitting here right now, I made it through the surgery. So there's no loopholes that I didn't make it through the surgery, right? But that was day one. As much a lot of people think that would have been a crazy moment or a really hard moment, that was actually only step 1 year of this, what is still to come in the next 6 months. That was as crazy as it is. That was almost the easiest part, because what was going to happen next, what's going to happen next, and what is going to happen next, and me and my family not almost being able to get out on the other side. And pretty much had the surgery. Specialist, the brain surgeon, said, hey, it was larger than the golf ball. We had to remove the pituitary gland. It was as successful as it can be, but your body's never going to be able to regulate your hormones as a side effect. You got to take medication for life. And as a male, again, we don't know how hormones work, right? We don't understand something triggers, and I'm happy and I'm sad, and I totally understand, and more respect to our female audience at the moment, understanding their body's being not under their control because of hormones going through their body. So recovering from the surgery, learning the new person I am, there's days because of my hormones, I can't get out of bed. There's days when I'm manic, and then there's days when I'm down. There's days I can't really talk to my kids because I can't see eye to eye, because I'm still to this point now. It's been just 3 years and 1 month, almost to the day, that I still struggle because of this hormone imbalance and what I need to do that. And again, this is just one step on this ladder. So going past June, the surgery, July, August, recovering from it, because I had everything the year before, I said, great, I don't have to worry. I'm self-employed. I'm good. The first few months, whatever cash was in the bank, that paid the bills, that paid the mortgage, paid the mortgages, the couple of the properties that I had, all the other things. And I said, not to worry, that's still that attitude. I've got insurance that will sort me out in a couple of months' time. I just want to recover and get good. And I started getting sort of September, October, where I got to the point of, hey, the cash in the bank sort of running out. I'm still slowly having to try and get back to work, trying to recover. I should maybe call up the people for my insurance and say, hey, I've gone through this. Can I get my medical insurance payout? Not to pay for the surgery, to pay my protection, right? We take out insurance in case something happens in life, and you can get paid out a lump sum or a monthly payment and stuff like that. So I had what I perceived as this protection. So I called my insurance company and said, hey, I've had brain surgery. Here's all my information. I can see I've got a insurance. Can we have my payout? So my insurance company turned around to me and says, yeah, you've got insurance and you've been paying 10 years with us and all the rest, but we're not going to pay out. So I turned around and I was like, what are you talking about? You're not going to you're not going to pay out. So they sent me an email. Again, I've got this this image I had home and highlighted. And in my contract, in the fine print, as I always do, there was 2 clauses that they found the reason of why they wouldn't pay me out. Firstly, in New Zealand, we are very progressive and very forward with our medical field throughout the world. We are very advanced in the way we do things. Normally, a brain tumor, you'd go through the skull. So with me, we didn't. We went through my nose. So you can imagine anyone that's watched the old school Total Recall, if you know what I'm talking about, that's what happened with me, right? In a real simple way. So they said to me, no, because your surgery didn't go through the skull, and it's called some medical term, and that didn't meet a brain tumor or brain surgery. Okay. And second clause, they said to me, okay, also you don't have you don't have conditions for the rest of your life, that you have to struggle with, because this is to pay out because you've had a big surgery and for the rest of your life you have struggles. We don't feel that you are unhealthy. I mean, at that stage, I was younger, I was looking a lot fitter than I was now. I looked like I was okay, but we had letters and supporting information. Like I said, it said that I'm on medication for life. If I get in a car accident, my body can't produce certain hormones. I've got to be given in hormones immediately. Otherwise, my body will go in shock and I can die. I can't get out of bed some days. I can't speak to my kids some days. And you want to tell me now that I'm fine? And you want to tell me that I'm healthy and I'm good? Don't get me wrong. I'm happy that I'm alive and I'm happy I am where I am. But by all means, don't tell me I'm okay, right? But insurance companies being insurance companies, they turned around and said, sorry, there's your 2 clauses, we won't pay you out. So this got to the next step on my ladder, realizing sort of September, October, that my money was running out very quickly. So I forced myself to go back to work. just slowly trying to make ends meet on the bills and everything else. And as I said, because in 2018 you had all the success, you had all the stuff, you had big expenses. Now, when you've got it all, you've got big things to pay, right? And when you don't have the money, this stuff gets expensive real quick. So sold as sold as much of my stuff I could. And it finally came to the point in January 2020, which is only a couple of years ago, where it got to the darkest point in my life where I bounced on a mortgage because I couldn't pay my bills. I'd sold everything we could possibly sell. I still held on to a couple of properties because I was like, hey, that was my kids' future, you know, a family home and like another property. That's my kids' future. If I let go of that, bounced on a mortgage, didn't know how I could pay the bills the next month. And also at that stage, because I had changed so much through the person I was and my hormones and everything, myself and my wife couldn't see eye to eye. The person she had married 12, 13 years earlier, and we'd been together for about 15 years at that stage, we were no longer the same couple. We couldn't see eye to eye, and I had to come out publicly to our friends and go, hey, we're not sure we're going to make it. We're not sure that our marriage can get it through if we can get through this situation. And it was at this point is where, to me, was my realization of what I call my darkest hour, because it was at this point, all the success that I thought and the importance I had in the world, I couldn't pay a bill. Everything that I thought I'd done the right way, I couldn't pay a bill. And everything I'd grown and been and family man and what is important, everything else, could no longer likely hold a family together. And it was the darkest moment, darkest time in my life where I couldn't see out. I couldn't see where to go. I couldn't see what the opportunities was. I just didn't know where to go with it. But one thing, and this is something that I hope people that get down to that point, when you get to the darkest moment of your life, if you're willing, you got to be willing for this, to look, you might see the smallest glimmer of light. And this is what at that moment, because I still had a little bit left in me, because I still had a bit into me going, what can I get? I saw the smallest glimmer of light. And what it was a remembrance that a couple of months before that, even while I was recovering, I was crewing at an event. I was giving away my time for free to help other people out. I met like-minded people that showed importance to me, that showed success of what I felt at that stage was more important, and had knowledge that I was lacking on in certain areas that could possibly help me in my life. And I reached out to these people, and I didn't ask them. I literally went to them and I begged them and I said, I have nothing. I have nowhere. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I can't pay my bills. I don't know how to hold everything together. Where do I go from this? And luckily enough, those people, they're part of, my wider network and family, and still close to me to this day. I speak to a few of them almost every week and every other week. They were able to help me slowly but surely to change the things that was needed to take one step to the next, to be able to get control over the things that I need in my life. And one of the learnings from that was the hardest step you're ever going to take is just that first one. The hardest one is ever going to be that first one. Because once you take that first step, you're already one step further away from what was holding you, or that darkness or that peace behind you. And then once you take that second step, you're further and further away. So for me, begging these people to help and then slowly putting that together, I was able to take one step and take the next step, and got it to, a month or so later, got my accounts under control so I could pay my bills and stabilize on that. Could work through taking that pressure out. Myself and my wife could figure out how we were as people and learned a new way to live with each other. And it was mostly 99% my fault. Most times I couldn't understand how to control myself or what the control was. And it was something very simple that we implemented with my wife. Was we implemented a safe word. And not a safe word like most people would think about that's watched 50 Shades of Grey, but a safe word that if anyone mentioned it between ourselves, whatever we had to do had to be stopped and we had to step away. Because there was moments I couldn't control how I would trigger, right? So I'd be fine having a chat, you'd say something and I would just go off. And I couldn't control my rage. And I couldn't control my up or I couldn't control my down. Now, it could be you talking over to me and then I lose it, or I start talking to you and then it just triggers me as well, or my wife could see this was building me up. And this is one of the big things of, not being able to talk to each other, talk around. She'd be stressed about us going out in public because she'd worry that, her South African husband was going to lose his shit in the mall and shout at someone. And that happened. I had lost it to people in public, got in people's faces for no apparent reason. So then, because we could slowly start controlling in one side of things, on the financial side, get some grip on that side, we could then implement some rules. And it was as simple as a safe word. And we sat down and said, here's an agreement. If any one of us drop this word, no matter what, you have to walk away of what's happening at the moment. So if we're having a conversation and she drops it, I've got to stop and I've got to walk away. So I walk away and she walks away. And that discussion or that topic or whatever doesn't get spoken about again that day. And it's funny, as simple as it was, it changed things straight away because it broke that habit. And it wasn't a habit I could control. It just broke that sort of thing, right? So people out there that, trying to break habits that they sometimes don't realize. When you're sitting with alcoholism, drug addiction, in the modern time, porn addiction in some sense, things like that is... sometimes you don't realize that by just stepping away how I can break it, but knowing how to actually step away. So needing someone next to you or to support you to go, this is what we're going to implement. This is the rule we're going to make between you and me. This is the pact we're going to make, that I'm going to support you and you're going to support me. And this is how we do it. And that's where a big difference in that made, so that we could take that one problem out of the way and then work through as a couple, where we're going. We're still working through it now. There's still moments and there's still changes and there's still things when I speak to my wife and she goes, hey, you're still not the person I married. She's got to accept and I've got to accept. We'll never be the couple we were 3 or 4 years ago or before the surgery because of what might change. And it's sometimes it's a hard one to swallow. My kids have that realization as well, that daddy's not the same person he was. I try to be. I try to change, but my control of my body sometimes still gets the better of me. But it was going through all of this into that point into 2020 and coming out the other side, thank goodness coming out the other side, was realizing actually what is important in life, right? All the money in the world couldn't save me. All the money in the world couldn't save me. So why do I chase money? Why do I make it the most important thing? Everything that I thought was important couldn't have helped me. And it was really then in 2020 when I realized that I need to stop doing what I think is important in the world, because there's so many people out there at the moment that could be listening or watching at the moment that they need that person to help them. They need that person to stand next to them to say it's okay. They need that person to stand next to them, or that person that can reach out to and going, I'm here, I'm happy to listen, there will be no judgment, and how can we as a group, individual, family and everything else, take that first and hardest step together. And that's the stuff that we as society unfortunately are lacking on. We see it too much. The level of suicide, the level of depression, alcoholism in New Zealand is horrendous, and it's in two struggles. We get brought up not to ask for help, and we also get brought up not to offer help. So how do you fix the middle? How do you bring the two sides together? And that's the biggest thing. What I try and do with my direction now is trying to bring those two sides together. I might not be the best person to do it, but I just still try to say, hey, we can bring it into the middle. We need to have it that it's acceptable. That we can do it. Not being judged, people feeling depressed, people not knowing to go, people don't have the right education, people not having the right know-how to save their families. But then, where do we go from it? We spoke about it off air, right? Where do you find the knowledge? Where does, as an individual or a human being that's struggling the hardest moment, where do I go to get the stuff that can support me and not expect something back in it? Because as a society we live in, no one does shit for free, right? No one does anything for free. There's very few people in society, because unfortunately I can't do everything for free. You can't do everything for free. I try to do as much as I can for free, and I try to get revenue from other areas now so that I can do things for free. But so that's where sometimes the hardest struggle is, because we like, hey, that person wants to help me, and then you worry that, if they help me, why are they helping me? And so it's such a hard struggle in society of trying to break down those molds and helping. I mean, one of your previous guests, Dave Latelli, is just a proof of that, right? His story going through his darkest moments and then coming through the other side, and then, his success in the boxing, and they built up that image of him of being the bad boy when he's a humble human being trying to change the world. And even him with all the stuff that he's trying to do, he was on the radio a few weeks ago trying to still say to them, break down these walls. We need people. There's two people on both sides. There's knowledge or support, and people that need the knowledge and they need the support. We need to just bring them there.
Man,
right?
Yeah.
We just need to put them there.
100%. That's some heavy stuff, Lawrence. That's heavy. Also, that's like, mate. That's like, these are the things kind of like an autobiography or a biography of a movie. I was like, this is a movie. When you're telling me this, it sounds like you're telling me about a movie. And for that to happen, and like you said, 2018, you had everything. Everything's you're on the top of the mountain. Hey, I'm the king of the world, and just a blink of the eye, just taken away. And so, bro, I'm just curious that like you said, because it would have taken every ounce of your being to swallow your pride and say, hey, I need help, because like you're saying, you had nothing. I couldn't pay the mortgage, and you talked about the glimmer of hope, the glimmer of light, brother. Also, what did you have to do? What did you have to like practically? What did you have to do in your mind? You're talking to yourself. I need help. Who am I going to talk to? How am I going to say this? What was going through your mind when you're like, what the heck? I've lost everything, and your wife, your kids. So what describe for us? How did you have to push every ounce of your being to say, hey, I'm just going to do it. I don't know what's going to happen. I just need to do it. Tell us.
Yeah, so we're sitting at January 2020, as I mentioned, and there's that realization, like I said, couldn't pay a mortgage. Get the letter from the bank going, hey, you didn't pay your mortgage. Looking at the account, going, I'm not going to pay the mortgage. I'm not going to be able to pay the mortgage the next month, let alone anything else, right? And then having this dilemma with my wife, and it was sitting there, not knowing what to do and how to do it. And it's at those sort of moments where you can understand people that go the other way, and you can understand it's where people take what they say the easy way out, because it just seems easier. And I had to sit there and work through and think through, how could I make this? But then remembered my upbringing with my family and me coming over here and fighting, as when I came over, I was a foreigner, so I didn't have, to work through the process of getting the papers to become a citizen. I'm a New Zealander now. But I had to think about how hard I worked and my family and fighting for it. And like I said, I had to think about it to the last end of the willingness of wanting to look or see if there's an opportunity. And because I had that in me, and a lot of people don't, unfortunately, because they weren't brought up to strive to that point, or they don't have people around them. So you can imagine a youngster from overseas is in New Zealand now. He's lost everything. He's lost his job. He can't find something. He can't pay. Where does he go in that moment, right, to the support, other than trying to find people out there? And in my moment, it was sitting there and thinking through the stuff that I still had, and thinking it through of what I had and what I'd done to get what I had, my family, the importance of my family, my 2 young kids, my parents were over here, all of that, the hard work we got into this point. And like I said, because I was still willing to try and find it, I then had this remembrance of these people that I'd met. I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know if that those people or those things were going to be in place. And I just reached out to them. And like I said, I didn't ask them. I reached out and said, hey, remember we hung out for a day and everything else. And I said, look, this is my situation. I'm in horrible situation. I need help. Can you help me? And beg them to show me if there was opportunities or what I could do through that time. And it was as simple, in one instance of sitting down with someone from a financial position and going, okay, how do we figure out how to pay your next bill? Where can we change things? How do we pull things back? How do we bring in good habits, or no, how do we change some of the bad habits that having all the success brought into your life? Takeaways and buying these things and buying these things and buying that thing that means nothing importance, and changing that mindset of, okay, let's go back to, in the real basic way, let's go back to baked beans and toast. Let's go back to the willingness. And again, this is where it's sometimes hard for some people and not hard for other, and sometimes hard for some people to others, is the willingness to give up everything. I'd lost everything, but you still got to give up all your freedoms. Not being able to go out, not being able to see friends, not being able to even go down the road and get a box of beers at $20. It's about giving the next layer of it and being the willingness to do that. And because I'd been in such a point of desperation, I said, I want to. I'm happy to. I'm happy to fight and give it all up and do it to give me back to an opportunity of being normal. I spoke to a person actually in that year, and I remember it. And she asked me, what is the biggest thing that you wanted to try and to achieve after your surgery? And I said, I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted to be a normal person, normal family, normal human beings. And that was one of the hard points of actually trying to do, right? Because I was no longer normal. I was different, unique. My wife would say a pain in the ass, but no, normality was no longer in my wheelhouse.
Mateness.
Big ups just for getting through all that. Just something you talked about was sort of finding the light, and I can't help but think about when you're down in the darkest moment of your life and just battling despair, mm-hmm. and having to dig deep and find that resilience that maybe you didn't even know you needed. And something that randomly popped into mind was, we talked about how chill we are here in New Zealand, and yet our suicide rates are so high. Mm-hmm. And I know for a lot of us who have been down in the dumps and been in the darkness, sometimes even having family around us that love us, and you'll hear this from people who have passed, and mm-hmm. the families of people who have passed who are like, why didn't they reach out? We would have helped them. Mm-hmm. And there's something about being crippled by that darkness, mm-hmm. and not being able to find that light, that just there's just a missing link there that we can't sort of fight our way out of. So yep. I just wanted to say big ups on getting through that, and it's so tangible when you're describing it, and it's striking a chord a little bit personally, mm-hmm. And so I'm just in awe, honestly, of you being able to come through that. And so something I wanted to touch on was, in that moment, were there words, and you talked a little bit about your father and mm-hmm. Some of the words that he gave you, but I'm curious about, any of those words, either whether it was from role models or people that maybe weren't with you then, but maybe people from your upbringing or your father or your parents, just those words of wisdom and encouragement that sort of maybe helped you in that darkness, even if they weren't there directly, going through it with you?
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of it was, the support at that moment, the support through that, taking those steps and everything else. And it wasn't necessarily specific to the words for me. It was the understanding of, or the perception of what I had in my life, going through, taking it one step to the next. So like I said, 6 months before, their wealth to me was, cars, money, traveling the world was wealth. After that, wealth to me was having family, having laughs, being around people that loved you. That was wealth to me. That was where, so that was sort of the having a word's meaning change, the meaning of a word having changed. So to me, wealth today now has nothing to do with monetary value. I don't seek monetary value wealth in my life anymore. It doesn't mean anything to me at the moment. As like I said, I'm not going to say no if you give you free money, but I don't chase it. So I chase. It's that understanding of that wealth, and that point. Again, perception of different words of success, different words of help, inspire. I think inspire is one of the big things. So in the sense of what I thought of inspiring other people was being the person on the top of the mountain. But when I realized inspiring is being at the bottom of the mountain with the person and helping them climb that mountain. That's how you inspire people. And that's where some of my stuff now is never standing on top there again. I want everyone else to be up there. And I still want to be at the bottom helping the person take that first step. And it's to inspire them in the right way. And that's why the biggest people in the world that have made a difference, if you think of the biggest people, and I'm never ever saying myself in this caliber of people, but the biggest people in the world that most people can believe always did that was Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. The whole world, everyone in agreement that they were good blokes, right? And they did that sort of and they got that realization through their lives that the inspire making a difference is not standing there looking down. It's standing at the bottom and pushing up.
Yeah, because it sounds like it's a massive dramatic change, Lawrence, and it's just a massive transformation from someone who's got all this material stuff and even money and wealth. Your family's intact, everything is great. And obviously, like Jay was saying, props to you for mustering that courage. Mm-hmm. And then there may be other guys who are watching this say, "Well, I can relate to what you're saying, mm-hmm. what you're talking about." But how about I'm thinking about those other guys who are like, "Hey, man, I was never rich, never raised up in a wealthy family, and who are going through some trauma and some real hard times." But I want to touch on what you said. You said, in the midst of your adversity, in the midst of your just despair, mm-hmm. you didn't think, "Oh, woe is me," or I need to look for something inspirational, the glimmer of hope. But you said something that's for me, it's very profound, because you said fight, mm-hmm. fight. And I'm not too sure. I'm not sure how other men view this. But when you say fight, you're saying fighting for your life, eh? Mm-hmm. You're fighting for your life. You're fighting for your family. You're fighting for who you are. And so in that fight, because I'm wondering as well, was there ever a time where you said, "You know what, stuff this, I can't do this, you know what?" And like it's kind of like you had an angel and a demon on both sides of your shoulders. Like, I can't do this. Was there ever a time like, "No, I just can't do this"? Or quit?
There was hard moments. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to use the word happy to say I never knocked on that door. It was close, but I never knocked on the door where I had to let the devil in. And I don't know if it was just the urge to fight and to make it no matter what. That was still within me. That took me down that path. Now, by all means, a lot of the listeners or the audience might not necessarily have that fire and stuff, and that's where the struggle comes from, right? When they knock on that door, where they go to that door that looks easier, and the devil comes in. That's when, unfortunately, the devil doesn't leave. And It is, like you said, there could be guys that's listening at the moment that didn't have the opportunity, the upbringing, having the friendships be around or the people around. And that's what I said about earlier is that's where the gap is. We've got this community or this group or this individuals or these people out there that on the one side need it. They might not know they need it, and they might be too humble or they might be too proud. And this is unfortunately a cultural thing that we struggle with, that they don't ask it. And we've got people on the other, and there's people on the other side that are willing to do that and support and to do it. And culturally, and this is the, if you can figure out this middle ground and put it in a bottle, like they say, you can have magic in a bottle. It's just bringing those two together. And I try and fight it every day and try and do it as much as I can by reaching out and finding out from people. And when I meet people and offering, my time and saying, hey, if you just want to talk to me, phone me, talk to me. I'm happy to talk you through my stories. I'm happy to talk through my darkness, and I can at least relate to what someone's going through. By all means, reach out to me. I might not solve all your problems, but at least I've been on my ladder. And it might not be the same as your ladder, but it's still a bloody hard ladder that I had to fight out of and can talk to you and have an appreciation. And I think there's never a magic bullet for anyone. And that's something we've got to try to culturally, or throughout the world, we cannot put a magic bullet on the table saying that's going to solve depression, that's going to solve suicide, that's going to solve anything else. Any medical condition we see now, they're like, okay, that tablet will solve it. That will solve it for 1% of the population. What about the other 99%? But because we're solving it for them, we're forgetting about those people. And I know that that's where we're trying to lead to is how do I solve it for those other people? I can't tell you how I can solve it for other people. I can just tell you that I'm willing to help to try and solve it for those other people.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, let's touch on that, because on the second part of the journey, because you're saying it's all about helping others, giving to others now, and the wealth of knowledge and experience that you have. Yep. And I love the fact, I love it that you say, hey, my life has turned upside down, it's changed, I see things different now. So tell us, in terms of the journey thus far, how have you been able to help others now, and the transformation of sharing your story and so forth?
So coming out of that stuff and the side of it, I still had the social media brand. I still have the Wolf of Queen Street. There was still the property knowledge I had, and the property stuff that finally I could stabilize and get back into the game after a couple of years. And like I said, it was that realization that people need help. People don't have the help, or people need the knowledge, right? And I went, okay, but I've got knowledge in social media, podcasting, and the property game. Why not give it out? Why not just share it? Why not coach people for free? Why not help people launch podcasts for free and help people do social media and tell them everything that I know? Because again, there was like that realization that no one's ever going to be Lawrence. I'm only going to be Lawrence. So that wealth, I'm willing to share that wealth and share that education. And then again, in New Zealand, is you either, unfortunately, the time we live in, you either have not or the have or the have nots. And in New Zealand, one of the big things of the have and have nots is property, right? You either love it or you hate it, because you're either on this side or you're on this side. And it's one of the biggest cultural divides in countries out there that must be, right, from a property within New Zealand. And then that's when there was the realization of mine of, having my education and been taught and been shown and everything else going, but hold on. This, as much as you think it's special and you think this knowledge is amazing and changes lives, it does. But why can't you have it? But why do you have to pay for it? Why can't you have it? But why do you have to pay for it? But I've got it. But you don't have to pay me. So there was that realization of, the stuff that we need to know, which is actually important. You go through school and they teach you all the stuff. You come out of school and realize that it's all bullshit. 90% of you don't go. Education's great, by the way. Education's great. Just subtly in there, right? But certain education is right, and certain education just doesn't help us, in the future in our lives. Like when I grew up, what as much as the history and geography and some of those stuff, right? And they had woodwork class and things like that. Yes, you could do some of those things, but I come into the real world and we live in an IT world and a social media world and this stuff, and what are the kids going to know, right? If they don't understand how the real things work. And that's where my understanding of with the knowledge that I had, I was like, cool, because I no longer chase the wealth of monetary value, or it's not important to me. But I know other people might need it to survive, pay their bills, overcome things I've come into. Can I just help them by sharing it to them and giving it to them? So by mentoring people for free, giving my time for free, can that possibly help someone get up their mountain? And that's where it's come to that's where it's got to the point now that 99% of, I say 99% because 1% needs to try and help it out, but 99% of what I really do is I do it for free. And I help and I give away. And I might not be the best, I might not know the most, but I'll give you what I have, and you can guarantee that there will be no hook in it, because I get sick and tired of those hooks in life, right? You go on social media, oh, get this, and then there's a hook in the corner. Yeah. Get this, there's a hook on this corner, right? I'll help you, come down here, and then there's another hook on that. We shouldn't live in society like that. We need to inspire and change culturally and be able to give everyone the equal opportunity and let them become their best versions of themselves, whether they go on and become sports stars and doctors and becoming rap stars or whatever. But the problem is they're not all on the same playing field, because some had the opportunity to get more up front. What would happen, if they all had the same playing field? How different would we be culturally? We would see the best in the world. And that's the sort of stuff that we need to go out there. And there's very few people I know that's, wanting to share their stuff and give away their stuff, because they feel too precious about it.
Yeah. Man, you're changing the game. You're changing the game, because there may be some people watching this. Hey, Lawrence, hey, what are you doing, man? You're changing the game for us, man. People should be paying for this, man, and all that. And you're right, because some people are thinking, hey, what's the catch? After you say this, and then you kind of do a pitch. Oh, what's the catch? But you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart, and because of the changes and what's happened to you. And so, have you come across people with like, hey, what is this? Is this kind of like a gimmick or something, or what's this all about? And when you, by giving them and helping them with whatever the knowledge you're giving them, how has it been for you in terms of them saying, oh, shucks, this is the real deal. He really is trying to help us. There's no strings attached.
Yep. I've seen some real interesting sides of it. I've had people that are like, no, there must be a catch and not interested. I've had people come out and go, hey, you can't do this, because by you doing this, you're going to affect me doing it. Yeah. But I'm doing it because there's more people in the world. I think this month or next month, we pass 8 billion people. I'm likely only going to help maybe 1,000 or 10,000 people in my life. You can have the other 7 billion, 900 million, whatever. You can have them. If I can help one person, that's worth it, right? So don't say you're going to lose your opportunity because of me. I might feel that I'm helping enough people. I'm never going to help them all or more people, right? Or too many people. So you do see from that side of things. I've had a lot of people coming going, oh yeah, this is going to be basic. This is going to be what it is. And then they come through and they do, I used to do 8-week courses, 2 hours of my time. I'd give up 20 hours of my time live with me in front of a camera. And they turn around. I've had people turn around and go, holy crap, you should be charging like $2,000-$3,000 for that. And I'm like, no, I don't care. I had people offer me money afterwards going, hey, I can't take that for free. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. And it's just... not to be precious, it's just that's not my journey, my family journey. That's just not me anymore, and what I'm about. And then it's funny because slowly, you let your in a weird saying, you let your children out to the wild with this new learning, and you wait a bit of time. And then like 3 or 6 months later, your children come back with a new wider family that come to you and go, hey, that person said you helped them and look where they are. Are you willing to help me? And it's like, by all means, I am. And then seeing bigger people or more important people in certain instances going, hey, I need help or I need guidance in this. Are you willing to do that? And yeah, I am. And it's amazing. It's not happening drastically as quick because it's funny, again, culturally, and this shows you a wrong culture. If I was charging $30 or $20 an hour for my time to help someone, people would take me more seriously and look at me in more professional manner than me going, hey, I'll do it for free. And I've been told this by people in the network circle going, you won't grow because you don't have a price on what you're doing. And it's like, how illogical is that? Yeah. And that just shows you the psychology and the dilemma we have in the culture point of view, that everything A to B gets done because there's a hook in C.
Man. It is. You're turning it upside down, Lawrence, because people always talk about, hey, adding value, so you can increase the value of your price and who you are. But you're turning it upside down. You say, hey, my value is something different in terms of I want to give to people, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier on, in terms of this, bro. Why are you're not getting the traction that you should be getting, bro? Because a lot of us are not asking. Yep. We're not asking, because you think of property. You mentor people in property and business and social media. People, man, in this day and age, people are looking at houses. I want to get a house. That's still the dream. Yep. And even New Zealand, and you're giving this advice for free, and so people need to ask. And then more so than just what you're teaching, but also as in mental health and all that, people need to ask. And you would agree that people need to be asking.
Yeah, we need to be asking
for help.
But that. To a certain person, that asking for help could be that first step. Remember, I said the first step's the hardest. And depending on if it's just, hey, someone reaching out and going, hey, dude, how do I do TikToks? How do I make social media or something like that? That's not their first step. That's just them reaching out and doing it. But to the one person, maybe to the one person that's listening tonight, them reaching out and just reaching out and going, hey, Lawrence, just doing that alone could be one of the hardest steps for them right now, because by doing that, it's them acknowledging that I'm consciously going to reach out to a person, Lawrence, because I might want to have a conversation with him about something I'm struggling with. I might want to ask him if there's someone else I can talk to or go with, or what I should do to that sort of person. And it is, we need culture people to feel that they can do that and do that more. But again, there's no silver bullet of how do we solve that. New Zealand, how do we solve that? We spoke about it earlier, one of the chilled, relaxed cultures in the world, right? Outside of maybe Hawaii, where they're about another 10 years slower, right? But culturally, we still have I think it's still the highest childhood suicide rate in the world. When they release those reports, I can't read them. When they release those reports on the front page of the news, I cannot read them, because when you go and read, if you've ever read the reports and you look at the suicide rates for kids under the age of 10, so like my boy, and seeing kids under the age of 10, kids that don't even know what life is, haven't even done everything and laughed the most laughs they're going to laugh, and they're still peewee little things, and you see numbers next to 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds not getting through because shit is too hard. That breaks your heart as a parent. And I wish there was a silver bullet. I wish there was a silver bullet that, if there was money or something that could go and go, that will solve it. But until we can try and figure that out, we still just got to go out and try and make that difference and try and help. And to anyone listening and watching this, is if you're at that bottom step at the moment and you want to do it, just with all your will and your might, take that first step, please. Because I can tell you from my experience, that first step, you might feel like there's 100 miles to get to where you need to be. Once you've taken that first step, everything is simpler from there. Not saying it's easy, it just gets a bit simpler from there. And if you're taking that first step in the right way of asking or talking to someone, then all of a sudden you're two people together going through that journey.
It's cool.
And you're not alone.
Well said. You're right. And I want to touch on that as well, because, obviously the latest stats is 1 in 5 young people, talking about youth, young people are thinking of seriously suicide attempts. So that's 12% up from 2007, 2008. And so you described, obviously, we all know as Kiwis, we're chilled, relaxed, happy-go-lucky. But what is it? What is it about us? And more so, some of the rates in terms of our men are very high. What is it about our nation that as causing us, and also some of the men, what do you think it is in terms of societal pressures? What is it? Or trauma? What's happening as to why we are taking our lives?
You've got a double-edged sword, and I know at the moment someone's going to be watching this and going to be throwing their shoe or something at the TV, or if they're watching across YouTube on the TV or their phone and throwing it and going. But there's a double-edged sword in this. And I'm not saying this is acceptable, not saying this is, but in a culture you go through cycles. And as something happens in culture and it almost gets, inverted commas, acceptable, it gets seen as an option. So we've got a very big dilemma, right? We've got suicide rates, depression, all that stuff is a dilemma. And unfortunately, because the path that it's taken and the lack of support that's been given to these people that need it for generations or for a generation, the way out is the door with the devil. And now our kids are growing up seeing that that's an option and hearing that it's an option and knowing that it's an option. And we're not giving them the right education to say, hey, I know that there's that door there and the devil's there, but there's actually something else on the side. And it's a better option. And it's that, like I said, it's a double-edged sword that because it's happening, seen and in knowledge and hearing, all of a sudden, to me, it's an opportunity. It's a chance, something I can take. And I know of more deaths and murders and deaths out of South Africa from the nasty side of that, and very, 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 very few of the ones from suicide compared to on the New Zealand side. And again, I don't know if it's a cultural thing of you fighting so much to survive that, like I said, is you fighting for the life just to be living and to be breathing, that you're never going to allow yourself to go to that door. You're going to fight till, life consumes you and takes you. And it's an interesting one. I was looking at the stat the other day with my dad. My dad's in his late 60s, and every week or other week at the moment, he tells me about a high school friend or a sports friend that has passed away, similar to my dad's age, all back in South Africa. And I was like, it's weird. Like, my dad's, to me, is young. He's a young guy. He coaches sport with me. We coach my boys' soccer team. And I went and actually did some research, and it was crazy that in South Africa, the average mortality rate for a male is high 60s. In New Zealand, it's in the 80s. There's almost 15 years difference between the average lifespan of a male in New Zealand to the male in South Africa. And we sat down actually talking to my dad and my mom that day, and we're like, what's the difference? My dad moved to New Zealand only when he was 50, or it's past 50, so majority of his life, experience there. What's the difference? And it was sort of that, and he said it was, we're talking about the fighting, the anxiety, the stress of everything else. So you push hard there, it just takes days off your life. So, and that's why the guys die of, heart attacks and stress and the other conditions. But, bringing it back around is that fighting means that the easy way out is not, doesn't mean people aren't doing it over there. But maybe in the sense from being more of a relaxed culture and everything else, and that double-edged sword, it's seen as an opportunity. It's seen as an option that I have. And like I said to anyone out there at the moment, please don't throw something at the TV or don't throw your cell phone at the moment. It's just maybe the way it is. I don't know. I can't say why it is that way. Like, again, if I could, we could put it in that bottle and make it magic.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. That's cool. Well said.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is very interesting. Oh, mate. It makes me, because we were so funny, Lawrence, because you think growing up in South Africa in Cape Town, and the things you would have seen some crazy things. You talk about your dad coming and the stress and so forth, but you would have seen some crazy things out there, some real violent stuff. Like, man, for you to get that door, knocking at the devil's door, man, that's an easy option. But you come here in New Zealand, it's quite chill and all that, and it's just would be amazing or a major contrast. But in terms of people asking for help, or men in general trying to ask for help and getting that help, what do you think needs to change for us mentally to take that first step to say, okay, because you talk about the fight, but what do you think as a culture in New Zealand, what needs to happen to change and say, hey, okay, I'm just going to ask. I'm not going to be afraid to ask. I'm going to normalize it. What needs to take place, or in your mind, in terms of normalizing, just ask for help?
Because you haven't talked a little bit about like the doctor thing and like for guys, and I don't know if that's like guys worldwide or if it's guys in South Africa and New Zealand or if it's, you know, what it is, but even on that angle as well, like there's just something about asking for help. Or
I think we need as a society to move off that the old way that the man is the man of the house, that the man is the person that stands there on top and protects and bees alls and does all, that we the caveman, that knocks the scary things away in society. Don't get me wrong, you know, a man has his place and as we push, but we've pushed it in such a point that the man's supposed to be that big guy and the burly person that bangs his chest and shows that I protect everything, I strong, and I scare everything away, and therefore by me being that means I can't be weak and I can't be emotional and I can't ask for help. So we need to, again, I think my thought patterns outside of, you know, help, giving people more opportunity to ask for help and showing a safe space and giving them the knowledge where they can go and people that they can talk to, I think we got to raise the future generations of showing that we're all the same. You know, we all. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be soft. It's okay to feel that weakness. And I think people are going to be throwing shit at the TV, but that whole man cave mentality is where a lot of it comes from. Now, I grew up in South Africa, so we were driven to success. You know, I can see New Zealand, the cultures from the islands, right? The man stands on top of that mountain and he protects his fauna and everyone else from anyone that's coming around, right? That's the culture for generations that's happened. So why would he ever think it's acceptable to be soft and emotional and ask for that help? Now, and that's not going to change in a generation, right? Because culturally, you still got to stand in front there, right? Our men stand in front of sports with the haka and show to be, we'll fight you to the death and everything culturally in New Zealand. But in the same breath, we want those guys to be willing to be able to go, hey, by the way, something's wrong. So that's where, from my side coming out and looking into it, especially in New Zealand, where you've got strong family ties and the bloodlines from the islands and the culture and the history of New Zealand, it's about strength. You know, it's about culture and family and standing there and being protective. But then we want that person to say it's okay to not be that protective or being that strong. And how do you do that? Because that's the way I see it of how to solve it, is how do you allow that person to ask, you know, as men, we don't ask that for help. But in New Zealand, how do you culturally take that generational bringing up of being the strength and supporting and doing everything with your family and then having those moments? And that's where it's those guys that do this, or sometimes the strongest ones that fall the furthest. And sometimes it's those ones that don't come out of it. You saw when COVID hit, there was article after article of a dad with a young family that ran a business that went in bankrupt and they couldn't get out of it. Because the man, the savior in the family and the culturally that says he's supposed to be the one that's the success and he's the one that's supposed to bring everything in, that all fell out. And culturally, we're like, he's supposed to look after. As a culture, we all look after. There's husbands, there's wives, there's partners, there's, you know, there's moms, dads, whatever. We all look after it. And we need to get off that culture, off that high horse that it's that person and this person. Because if we keep putting that person there, that person's never going to know how to react and do things better when they are from there and they come down to here. Because they're not going to accept it and not going to be willing to accept it or know how to accept it.
Mm-hmm. Good point. And you're right in terms of, you could be that individual, that man, the masculine man. He's the leader, And it always comes down to me. And for me personally, as well, Lawrence, and you can agree or disagree, Jay, a lot of it for me, it kind of stems in terms of Pacific Islanders and cultural, and I think for other nations, is pride. It is. It's something that it's just hard to break. And if you're stuck in this for so long, and you've been taught this for generations, pride is can be a killer in terms of trying to ask for change.
Why will a 6-year-old ask any question, but a 16-year-old won't? What happens between 6 and 16? Right?
Yeah.
Society, the pressures, the culture. A 6-year-old will ask the most random, inappropriate questions at the worst times, right? Any family man, any family that has a mom or dad that has had a kids, they will stand in front of a group of people and say the worst thing and embarrass you, but they will never fear to ask that question. And again, it's what goes from 6 to 16. I understand there's hormones and the kids figuring out their ways in life and where do I fit into place, but what changes in society pressures and things that we push on them, right? And it's because we want the perfect kid. We want the perfect boy. We want the perfect girl. There's more things in boys and girls and the paths they take, and whether you support or you don't support it. How about just supporting them as a human being, irrespective? Make them a better human being, whatever path they take, allowing them to make the mistakes and supporting them along the way and saying it's perfectly fine to fall over and knock your knee. And I'm here. Because by the time they're 16, they're too afraid to ask the questions. By the time it's 26, it's impossible to ask that question, or impossible willing to feel that I can ask that question because it's so ingrained.
Man, yeah, no, that sort of makes me think about the sort of double-edged sword of some of those positive attributes, things like legacy and family and tradition. The flip side is that because, at least in some of the Pacific families, like this is the way things have always been done, so this is the way they should always be done.
Correct.
And anything venturing outside of that, you're sort of in no man's land, you don't get supported. And one of our other guests, Dom, had talked about the dangers of things like reputation and how family reputation can be used as sort of a knife against members of their own family when they go through trauma and things like that. So, it's just interesting, the duality of our society, those things that, we can give praise to, also some of the things that cripple us to a degree. And it sort of made me think, when you're talking about magic in a bottle, why do we need a bottle? Like sometimes, even just the structures that we exist in is like, we want to have this magical healing, and yet the only way it can happen is also the thing that keeps it limited to those who are inside the bottle, if that makes any sense. It's a bit of a ramble, but
Totally does. Should be a genie in a bottle. No, but you bring an interesting point, Lawrence. You're right. I guess when you're kids, there's this innocence there that we just able to just be free and share. And you said it, but was there any? Give us an example of an experience when your child was just like, because we're not prone to say, hey, you need to act a certain way. But was it an experience or an example that your child kind of just said something, hey, what are you doing? But at home it's like, it's normal. What you do it in public, it's like, hey, you can't do that.
I would have to think back. My daughter's 13, turning 14, so it's been a good few years since she's been 6. But I know. Here's one I know with my daughter, with my mom. So when my daughter's growing up, my wife was mummy and grandma was mommy. Okay, so it's subtle difference, right? So, or the other way around. It's been a good few years. And so my mom would take, so grandma would take my daughter out. And then my daughter would shout out to grandma, 6, like, oh, mommy, and grandma would be like, no, it's grandma. Because to her, she felt almost like a little bit embarrassed, like, how could this be my kid? And, that's the sort of, the sort of thing. So go, no, the kid wants to be that way. Actually, here's your structure. You should fit in the structure, right? And, thinking of it now, that, that's a sort of example of going, hey, no, don't conform that way. Don't do it your way, conform my way. And that's the subtle slow things. That's a simple one, right? That doesn't really change the way my daughter's raised, but that's a small sort of examples that as we do things, as our kids grow up and go into society, that we don't really realize the impact it has onto them, right? Going up and not being willing to express their emotions, being able to feel that they can express their emotions. Ask any dad who's got a teenage daughter of whether their daughter will be willing to talk to them or not. So
tell me about it.
So it's like how do we work through that? And that's where it is. How do you work that? How do you work with your boy going through a teenage and him trying to find his place and having that freedom and stuff? And again, there's so much different in the cultures, right? There's so many different in some cultures supporting, other cultures it's just like, okay, I grew up, I became a man at 14, you got to figure it out, so figure it out by yourself, right? And then this kid doesn't know how to go with life or where to go and who do I ask, and it's just these challenges.
And I can speak to that 100%. I mean, think back to primary school, at least when I think back to my days at school, how small life was. Life consisted of getting up, having breakfast, going to school, coming back, playing with your friends, and then coming back, and that was life.
Yeah.
Until you got to the tail end of high school, and then everyone sort of is asking you, what are you going to do with your life? And you're like, what do you mean? Like, this has been my life for so many years, and just how scary that feeling was getting out of high school. And everyone seems to know that people are going to university, and everyone seems to have an idea on what they want to do, and you're sort of just stuck in the sand, like looking around trying to find what the hell am I supposed to do. And it's such a scary feeling. And I think you touched on having conversations, being able to talk about the way the world is, even at some of the younger ages, just to help plant some of those seeds for.
It's about doing it in the right way. So one of the things that as a dad I'm really proud that we're able to do with my kids is we've been able to keep the childhood fantasy as long as possible. So my daughter's 13 to going on 14. My boy turns 11 in a couple of months as well. And we still watch animation movies and the fantasies, and we still want to do, if we can, do the theme parks and have that craze and keep that fantasy of the childhood as long as possible. I'm a big animation fan and Disney fan, so is my wife. I mean, I've got a Peter Pan tattoo on my chest because I'm a kid at heart. So with us, we've tried to keep that as long as possible because we all grew up too quick in some of our situations, right? Because we had to, because of cultural, because of family, and sometimes, and you can never get that back. I got 70 years to be an adult. You only get like 16 years to be a kid. And there was an article that just released this week. I read that as a parent, 90% of the time you will spend with your child will happen by the age of 19. So by the time of 19, 90% of all the time you will spend with your child, unless they're lazy and they don't leave home till they're 30, but 90% of the time as a parent that you'll spend around and be with your child will happen to the age of 19. The last 10% after 19, you only spend 10% with them because they go out to the world and they will go and grow and marry and live in their own space. And so that's the sort of stuff of, and why do we need to sometimes push that stuff too much further along, right? Our lifespan's going longer and longer. New Zealand, it's 81, I think 81 and change for the men, 83 and change for the females. The females always outlive the men because they're smarter in most instances and don't do dumb shit like we do. And the other side of the things is, like, I can remember as a kid, I remember growing up and going, when someone hit 60, they were old, right? And my dad, and now my dad's almost 70. Don't go there, I know. And then I'm like, my dad's almost 70, and he's still, to me, he's still young. He's still a kid and young, and and stuff like that. And that's the sort of stuff of, again, in a weird circle of allow the freedom as the child to grow and understand it without us imposing our crap on them, what we think. In America, there's so much cultural divide, right? In America, they've got a different dilemma in America compared to what we have in New Zealand. They're the only country in the world where kids go and kill other kids, right? And again, they've got a dilemma there, like we've got the suicide here, and no one can put a finger on it of explaining. Take the guns away. They say it will solve it. Education will solve it. But still, it's a weird in that country. That's their dilemma. In our country, it's the suicide, and it's it's one of those weird things. We can't figure it out, but we can just try and help and be part, and support and stuff like that.
That's true, man. That's true. Because we talk about the societal pressures and all that, but sometimes the onus really comes down to us, as parents. And you're right. You're right.
I'm seeing that now.
Yeah, because I recall my son and I, we have this kind of joke. We mock people or mock each other. And then they go, hey, just don't do it in public. And then my poor son's like, oh, it's all right. And he does it in public. Hey, what are you doing? And you're right. He gets confused. Like, but you, Dad, we just, at home, was just normal. We just stick around. Now you're telling me not to do it. So you do mixed messaging, all that kind of stuff. Just, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've got 2 young kids at home. One's 3, one's 6 months. And,
Enjoy.
Yeah. I'm doing my best to soak it
As long as you can.
But there's a part of me that thinks about like the kind of person they'll be growing up and the kind of example and the impact and legacy that I'm going to have on them. And there's a part of me that thinks about the hardship growing up and how I don't want them to have to go through that. And there's a part of me that's sort of angry at the hardship because when I look back, I think it was so unnecessary and why were things like that? And so my whole thing has been about trying to prep them for what the real world's going to be like. But hearing your perspective on like letting them enjoy childhood, the magical side of it, is interesting.
I use the word humans more than I ever had in the last few years because it encases us all. We need to just be a human, be a child. Don't let them be. What I was going to say is, in 3 months, so what you said, 3 years and 6 months or something. Or as a parent, and I look back at mine, is all I wish I could have done more with my kids is just do more smiles. Just make them smile more. Whatever we did to make that happen, that's all we should be doing. If that means sitting there and singing some stupid song 30 times or watching Blue's Clues for 10 hours or going on a swing or something, that's all as the kid, that's all they need from us. Kids only, all kids want is our time and our love. They don't care that it's a swing that has, gold on the side and it's comfy. And, as a kid, I can remember some of my favorite memories doing the most weirdest, randomest, cheap ass stuff. But it was amazing because I was doing it with either other friends or my family. Right. And then that's the sort of stuff we should just be doing more with our kids, just going out and laughing and giggling and doing the silly stuff and, enjoy as long as they're young, make more smiles.
Well said, man. That's well said. And it is so cool, Lawrence, because you're very authentic, and it's hard now in this day and age. People are looking high and low for people who are authentic, who are their real. And you hear it all the time now. Be authentic, be your real self. But what does it really mean? Because I'm just thinking, what does it mean in terms of for us as men? What does it mean to be authentic, to be real? Because people have different definitions of authenticity. But what does it mean for you? Like for you to be your real, true self.
I think it's that realization, like I said, is that I'm me and I'm only ever going to be me and I'm never going to be anyone else. Some of my people I look up to, the likes of Gary Vee, Grant Cardone in the entrepreneurship, the property space, Tony Robbins. I went to his events, got to meet him, so those sort of stuff. And many, many years ago, I was like, I want to be them. I want to be in front of a stage of 1 million people and motivating people and driving people. But it's the being true to myself, but also understanding. We spoke about, I think it was off air, saying doing what makes you happy. Not do necessarily what you're good at, do what makes you happy, right? And what you're passionate about, and being true to that. So my realization is I was doing stuff that gave me stuff that I thought I enjoyed or what is important to me. And my brain tumor showed me what actually is important to me and where I'm good at and what I love to do. And I was speaking to someone today, and I said, if I could just make sure that my 9 to 5 income that I had was covered, I would go and do 12 hours of charity work every day for the rest of my life. Because that is what is true to myself. What I've realized as me is what I want to do is do that. And it's that understanding. And some people get that. Some people understand that. Some people never do. And they just go through their life. They live a great life, have amazing memories and do that sort of stuff. And other people realize it late in life. What is important and being true to their self. The people that are really true, public and everything else, are the ones that when they leave the room, everyone in the room can agree that is a good human being. That is how you know that if you've been true to yourself, is the perception. I don't care about other people's perception anyway, but from an example, is the perception of other people when you leave the room. Now, I know in my 20s, when I left the room, everyone's like, thank God he's left. I know that. Because I was an asshole and I was loud and everything else. I know that was the like I heard. But I hope now that when I leave the room, people go, hey, he's trying to make a difference. And I think that's how it's, being true to yourself is realizing what is you down to the core of what you want to achieve and be, and what you're passionate about, and doing that. So many people out there are doing something because they feel they need to do it, but there's another passion they can do it on the side that they really want to do. And I know you're saying, hey, I can't do my passion because I have to pay bills. How about sit down, talk to someone and figure out the path to do that? You want to be a passion to go out and help people. You want to be the passion. Dave Latelli, he's one of the biggest inspirations in my life that I've seen, and most of us have seen, right? He does what he does. I know he works hard at it. I know he does many, many hours of it. I'm happy to say when I phone him, he answers the phone. But he's doing what he's passionate about. But he had to go through other realization and all the rest of it, and find that path, and then start from the bottom and work that way. Because nothing is a greater feeling when someone pats you on the shoulder or comes in to do it and going, you are making that difference. And the thing that you are doing is the thing that you're passionate about. Because there's no better feeling. Is making a difference. You're helping someone. You're doing something different. You're joyful. You're being great. You've been a great human being. Some people's passion might be out there because they want to grow a garden for the rest of their life. By all means, do that. But sometimes it's struggle to get between where they're stuck in their life now to where they need to be. There is opportunities to transition from one to the other. But knowing that, hey, we just need to be able to talk to people, or reach out to people and try and figure out how do we go from year to year. Maybe it takes 2 years or 3 years because I've got to put other things into place to become true to myself and then do what I'm passionate about.
Cool, man, brother. That's cool.
That's wicked. I'm curious about a couple of things, but I'll start with the first one. How was your wife sort of, you mentioned before sort of some of the differences coming out of that dark period, but in terms of, I just had the thought of like, if I told my wife, I'm going to be giving out, working for free essentially, but finding other ways to pay the bills, she might wring my neck. So I'm curious about your wife getting behind the vision or supporting your vision, getting alongside it, what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, so like I said, I still have a 9 to 5. I'm self-employed. I'm in the IT industry, so luckily enough, that pays my bills and pays my passion. So, like I said, I just did a campaign just a couple of months ago on social media, giving away 1,500 of my hours. So I sat down with her going, hey, I want to give away 1,500 hours of my time. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's literally like every spare hour for the rest of the year. And I just turned to her and I said, hey, I said to it, I'll do it after family time. So I went and booked out my calendar from like 8:30 at night to 12:30 at night, put it on a calendar, and anyone that wants my time, their calendar exists, they can book the time in it. So it's like Monday to Thursday. So it's about 20 hours, 20, 30 hours a week. That time is available to anyone. And I said, it'll be outside of family time. It'll be outside of when we're on the weekends. It's the time that I'm normally on social media. I just want to do that to help it. And she understands that it's important to me or what I'm trying to do. Sometimes she doesn't understand all of it, and sometimes it's a bit frustrating because I do my 9 to 5, and I come home and I do my 5 to 9, and I don't get as much time with the kids or hang as much time with her and that. But she's seen now that it's more to who I am as an individual, and that it's more honest of what I want to do as a person and trying to help. And I've got an initiative that I actually haven't spoken about to anyone publicly outside of a few close people. Is I'm trying to find a way to help more people, but I don't have the money to help more people because I don't want to charge people for time. So I don't. But I want to, there's people living in the street. There's people that need help. There's kids going to school with no lunches. Stuff like Dave Letelier and Butterbean mentioned, there's people that don't have food on the tables. So I've got the contacts and the networks to be able to get to the people that need help. But I, for example, don't necessarily have the big enough revenue to be able to help them. So I want to put together like a campaign of joining at something called the Wolf Tribe we're coming up with, where you're pretty much donating $5 a week, a cup of coffee, and become part of the Wolf Tribe. And all that money goes down to the community to help them on a weekly basis and getting shown on social media. And it's not shown to be shown and been seen. It's to show that so for example, as a person, you can see that's actually going out to help stuff. Because again, another dilemma we have in our society, in some instances, we have large charities and organizations out there and they collect a lot of money in millions, but the person down at the bottom, I doubt they see it in some areas. Some organizations, they do amazing work, don't get me wrong, but other ones I question. Of where the money that goes to the top and goes through 20 layers of organization and levels, does the person that $5 or the $20 that I give to an organization or charity at the top, does that $20 get to the bottom? And I'm sure that every level it goes down, it gets cut by 10%, 10%, and 10%. And anyone that disagrees with me, I'm happy to listen.
I guess we can name and shame some.
No, we're not going to do that.
We'll do that to you, Lawrence. Oh, mate, that's beautiful, mate. Hey, listen, I'm conscious of time as well, Lawrence. It's just beautiful. Just and I can imagine. I guess, Jan, I can imagine like back, what you were like back in the days. But for now, the dramatic change, bro. It's beautiful what you're doing, and I love that you're giving back to not only just people in general, but people of all walks. Mm-hmm. And so depending who asks, and so it's cool that you're doing that. But have you had people like who just obviously some random people, but people just like, who the heck is this? This is kind of far left. And why are you asking me?
Not everyone's going to agree with everyone in the world. Not everyone's going to see the same way we do it, right? We're a year away from elections in New Zealand. I don't want to get into politics, but there's the one side or there's the other side or there's something in the middle. It's just the way it is. And I've realized that in the beginning of doing it, there was, why are you doing this and who are you and what you're doing. And like I said, in my 20s, I cared what people thought about me because I had the ego. I don't care. I hope, but I don't care. Because I know we can't save everyone. That's the hard part. We can't save everyone, but we possibly could save one or two. And that's, if I can do that and that's the people, then I will. And some people won't agree with me and some people might support me. So I've got a group of people that support me truly, and I've got other groups of friends that know me and stuff and all the rest of it, but might not necessarily support me, and I'm perfectly fine with that because that's their decision, and I support everyone on their own decision.
It's cool, man. Cool. Jay?
Man, excuse me, sorry. I was just curious about, just thinking about you going through that dark period, and sometimes, at least for those people who are just inclined to learn the lessons the hard way, Mum's always saying, oh yeah, you always have to learn the hard way. But do you think there was ever a scenario where you would have learnt what you learnt without having to go through that? Or do you feel like it had to happen that way in order for you to see that light that way?
I would not be the person I am today without the last 3 years. And in a weird way, as much as I don't want to again use the word happy around it, I want to say blessed that it did happen. If it didn't happen, I would have had more than I would have ever needed in this world, but that would have been me and my family. And potentially 20 less people could have had what they needed in their world because I wouldn't have come to this side of the table to try and help them. In that instance, the darkness, there's nothing in the life that I can teach you. I can explain it and I can tell you there's nothing there's nothing that can educate and get you ready for it. But other than to tell people that there's people that have gone through it, I've gone through it, and they understand it and can support you through it. And you know that there's that support. And then, so that when you do get that situation for some reason in your life, or when the world puts the pressure down that only the world can, and all of us in some stage in our life that will happen. Might not be depression, or might be suicide, might be, it could be as simple as a marriage falling over, not knowing what to do, losing a loved one. World will squeeze everything out of us. And there's nothing, we can't be ready for it. We just got to know that there is ways to ask to come and stand next to me, so that I don't have to be alone with this journey. Because that was one of the big things, was I got through, and I had the people that I reached out to, but I had to step through it, and then step through it, and step through it. I would never wish that on anyone in my life. My worst enemy, I would never want them to be to that point. Even my worst enemy, if he ended up in that point, I would go and help him. I would stand next to him, and then when he get out, I was like, okay, you can go away now, right? Because it's, like I said, when you get to that point, you've only got two ways: up or down.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. You kind of answered my next question anyways, which was, is it better to prepare to avoid that, or better to prepare yourself to know that when you get there, and it's inevitable that you'll get there, that there is a way out?
Yeah, definitely the second.
Yeah, no, that's cool. You kind of embody, there's a story, and probably my favorite story in the world is, you might have read it already, Those Who Walk Away from O'Malley's.
No.
And it's about this utopia, this perfect city where everything is glorious, everyone is happy, and they build up this massive picture about how glorious, and whatever it is you can imagine, that's exactly what the city is. The catch is that the city's happiness, or the happiness of this utopia, is conditional on one child living in like a closet in the dark, never seeing the light of day, barely eating, but not enough to die. And it's, everyone goes through this process of realizing the truth, but for a lot of them, the majority of the people accept that the sacrifice is worth the payout. But for a few of them, they don't accept it, and they are willing to journey into the wilderness to find their own, make their own utopia. And it's not knowing what happens to them, but they have the courage to walk away. And so it's kind of cool just hearing all of this story, looking back at it all, and just seeing that, you're really vocal and really authentic about not accepting the way things are because that's how they've always been, but looking at different ways to do things. And I think it's so admirable, it's so honorable, and it's really inspired me to sort of think outside the box a little bit and really maybe even reach out. So yeah, this is big ups to you, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
That's so cool. Yeah, just to talk about what he's saying, what Jay's saying. Bro, you kind of like convicting us, bro. Like, bro, am I doing enough to help other people? Am I just kind of, and then I love your perspective and the way you think, Lawrence. It's so cool. It is authentic. And I love your heart. You mentioned blessed. We're blessed, bro, because the way you're talking and the way you're thinking, it's no longer about you anymore.
Yeah.
It's about helping others. And I love the fact that it is about people in general, regardless of who you are, background, color, creed, whatever, religion. I'm here to help you. And we love that. We love that, bro. And that's what it is. The whole premise around Mandate is to encourage, inspire. And I love what you said. I can't inspire people. I can't motivate people if I can't inspire them. Yeah. And you've really inspired us, bro. I know we haven't touched on property. We haven't touched on business, social media. And I know you wanted to talk about the mental health and also just the well-being of men in general. And bro, just the way you are, bro. It's just. No, we've been really blessed, bro. We've been really blessed. But just one more question, bro. Because one more question is this: throughout the incident and the trials and the hardship, bro, what is the one thing? What is the highlight now thus far for you in terms of helping someone? Is there someone that you can think of, or is there an individual or individuals that man, that was like, oh, bro, I was blessed to help this person. Who is that person in particular, and what did you do for that person?
Oh, that's a hard one because there's been different paths on people. one of moments is just supporting. Again, I don't like to point one above the other one. And I'm thinking through people that help their brand and their business, and there were one of the moments that I'm most proud of. One of the moments was when COVID hit. I went onto a New Zealand business Facebook group, and I said I was going to help brands that wanted to launch podcasts or social media, and I ran a whole long campaign. It was about 3 or 4 months, and I did different courses and stuff for people through there. And I gave it away for free at that stage. And there was people coming on, and at that stage that had lost their job and didn't know what was next. And I was able to teach them how to do this sort of stuff in a free manner. And people go, oh, you can podcast for free. You can. This is next level where we are, right? This is that next level. But you can do social media for free. You can do podcasts for free. You can launch a brand or in a business for free. You can do a lot of things if you have the right education. So one of the cool things when I think back now was being able to do that and having people in their big struggle and going, hey, here it is. Here's a stepping stone. Here's a help on that ladder. And then for them to take that next step in the ladder. And some people are still doing it today. They've still got their brand. They're still going with it, and it's helping them build up to the next steps down their journey and bring revenue in and bring business in and give them that stabilization that they need.
Man, awesome. And when you do that, that's your purpose. You're like, man, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Man, props to you. So props to you, man. Hey, any last words, Jay? Or
No, I'm just grateful for the time and just the honesty. And I think the one thing I'll take away from this was sort of the importance of recognizing signs. Not every sign is sort of signposted for us or convenient for us. But you mentioned before about, your vision and movement being impaired, and when you went to go see the doctors. And I just thought that was such a good analogy for life and the signs that we might miss or that we notice, but not enough for us to think that something's different. We might put it down to age or whatever else, but whatever it is we're going through in life, I think there are signs for us to be able to pursue things further, to be able to slow back on things. But there are signs. We are surrounded by signs, and so one of my life mottos is look for the lesson. And I think there's lessons all around us, and I'm thankful for the lessons you've shared with us through your experience. So appreciate you.
Yeah,
thank you so much,
Lawrence. Man, thank you so much. Also, is there someone in particular you can think of at the top of your head who would be ideal, could be ideal for the podcast, bro? To come on,
yeah.
Come on.
How about this? I'll do a shout out. So for the last few years, as part of it, I always try and find myself a merch brand, for example, that resonates close with me. I had a company, NKDU Apparel, previously out of Australia that resonated with me. They were sports rugby league apparel that supports people through mental health. At the moment, I'm better than before from guy in New Zealand, Sam. And he's also trying to make a difference. He's trying to teach people how to be better than before, drive into the next level, and becoming, again, better human beings. He's got a podcast, goes out there, reaches out to people, trying to help people get up on taking that next step in their lives and stuff like that. So if I have to do a shout out to someone that I think would be great here, I think Sam from Better Than Before be a good guest. And some of the other people, like I said, that inspired me, you've already had on your show. Likes of Tox, Joseph Parker, Dave Latelli, those people, you've really killed it by having them on.
Oh man, thanks. Hey Sam, if you're listening, brother, come on, better than before.
We're coming for you.
We need you, bro. Awesome, Lawrence. Hey Lawrence, every guest that comes on, we always give them a gift, a bit of a sketch, a bit of a caricature. Brother, you are no different. This is for you on behalf of the Mandate team. Brother, bless you so much also.
Oh, look at that. That is awesome.
Hey man, no, you're awesome, bro. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Please, we definitely have to have a part 2, so we can actually talk about property, business, and social media. We need to. I think it's one of the things that our men need to understand and need to know. So, part 2, man, we're hitting you up again, bro.
Sounds good. Always happy.
Yeah, but any last words? Any last words of encouragement for our viewers?
If you're still here at this length of the show, I've said something right and good because we've been going for a while. But if there's anything you want to reach out, feel free. Obviously, my details will be across on the show. My name's Lawrence Lotze. You find me anywhere on any social platform that is out there. But the biggest thing is just if you're unsure, still reach out. If you want to say hi, say hi. If you're not sure where you need the help or where you need the support and everything like that, please, as my wife says, my cell phone's always in my hand. So send me a message. We can chat. We can catch up. We can virtually or for a cup of coffee. I'm a safe person to reach out to.
Yeah, awesome. And the man's not kidding. Please hit him up. Look him up on YouTube, on all the social media. Please, the Wolf of Queen Street. Please hit him up, Lawrence Lotze. And so, bro, thank you so much. And as usual, also like, subscribe, and comment. And as usual, refine,
Unlock, and
take
take charge.
Band-Aid.